I literally see life as a brutal sexual competition.
Yeah, right.
And that I am fighting within this sexual dance reality.
Yeah, like zone 3 is
Okay.
the consummation. It's the
the cuffing season I saw.
the cuffing season. It's like
I saw that and I was like, that's us. There we go.
Yeah.
You know,
I want my eggs cracked. You know? I want my name dropped. That is 3-2, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
The big hormone enneagram.
I'm John Alexandra, 415, sexual self-pres, 458 trifix.
I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual, 9 with 1 wing, 974 trifix.
What up, it's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing 7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm a social self-preservation 9-wing 1, 963 trifix.
Like and subscribe on Apple and Spotify, and leave us a review. If you want to support the show with a donation, you can find us on Venmo at Big Hormone and paypal.me/Big Hormone. All right, what do we feel like doing today? We could do the
Zone
zones.
stems?
We could do the zones.
That'd be
Zone
cool.
stems.
Alexander's got a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been blabbing about it. I don't have anything like prepared.
Yeah, we could just riff
But
on
I think
it.
they've been fun. Yeah, they've just been
Yeah.
fun to like observe and guess. And obviously
Yeah.
with me now, I'm trying to type everybody.
Do we want to do, anybody got any plugs or anything? You guys want to talk about your
sure.
course?
Yeah, so Alexander and I are doing a sexual instinct course. It's midway through. It's really good so far as of, midway through as of recording this episode. But it should be available for buying the videos. It's been great. People's observations have been awesome, and it's just going really fucking well. Anything you want to add to that, baby?
Honestly, not really. Obviously, it would be at this point that this recording comes out, it would be too late to join the live course. But I still think it's really been fruitful and would be worth the investment to buy the course after the fact.
Yeah, it feels
Been
like
good.
there's going to be a lot that stems from this. And then just earlier this summer, we did The Pain of the Blindspot, which was a presentation we did at the International Enneagram Association conference in the Netherlands. We did a recording of it. So that's on both those are on the enneagramschool.com website. And I think our next Egypt trip is going to be in October of next year. So just for people who want to save money and stuff like this, nothing's for sure yet, but that seems like our next trip. And I think that's it. Something I forgot to plug was the Dream Girls, Insomnia Girls, are doing a course through the Enneagram School. So
Nice.
I'm not sure when that is, but it seems like it's going to be pretty good and pretty comprehensive. So it's also on the enneagramschool.com.
Nice. Cool.
Kaisa, Kristen, and Sammy. So.
All right. We're going to talk about the
Zone
instinct
stems.
zone stems today. We got into it about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I guess it just sort of happened and we expanded on it. And if you want to watch any of the introductory videos on that, you can join Enneagrammer members. But today we're just going to bring that over here, give an overview and sort of like our own experiences with it so far. But anyway, yeah, how did that even happen? It was David, your cards.
My instinct cards had the seeds of this, I guess, in it, in that I have kind of 3 zones within each instinct that I associated with each instinct. In other words, in effect, there's, within the sexual instinct, there's sexual, self-present, social, not meaning that it's like the actual instinct per se, but what's going on in these zones is comparable or relatable to each of the instincts.
Well, it seems like you're describing, like, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like a process that there's like a cycle or a process that each instinct is going through. And I think it's more useful to think of them as parts of that process that each instinct can get stuck in, because
That's good.
if we get like, oh, I'm the self-pres, self-pres, social,
Yeah, that gets
sexual
murky.
type. Like
Mhm,
that made no fucking sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But think of it in terms of stuck. There's a process happening with all three
Or
instincts, and then you're stuck there or something. Or
well,
whatever.
and is what you mean there that kind of it should be a process,
Mhm.
but you stop in one spot, one part of the progression, right?
Right.
Yeah. So to zoom out a little bit, over the years, there've been attempts. People have made attempts to sort of give subtypes of the stackings. I think there had been someone who had done something like far side or near side. You guys remember those
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
back in the day?
Yeah, of course.
they're still around. Those. Yeah.
So
One
I
side,
think
cool side, yeah.
a few months ago, I had gotten into Rob's AP system, and he had come up with something called expanded instincts. And at the time, I was really dismissive of it because it doesn't seem like actual instinct. But I came around to appreciate it just for what it is, and so it got me thinking. Maybe there's a way that we can find inner dimensions of what these instincts are doing, but couldn't really find a way to do that. And then so when we did the class on David's, we were just going to do a class on David's instincts within the instincts. Basically, the cycle of there's an initiating energy force for any of the instincts, which would be the sexual part of that instinct, and then there's the expansive, getting out there, being seen, being validated, competing, which would be the social aspect of that instinct. And then there's a consolidating, fortifying aspect of all the instincts. And so you can see this cycle from initiating, expanding, and fortifying. But as we started doing that, it sort of became obvious that you might, just like your regular stacking, that you might get stuck in a certain part of each instinct, or you might overemphasize a part of the cycle, depending on your instinct. And we've talked about like how you and I did, or John, sexual self-pres, the way our sexual self-pres shows up is very different. Like you have, beyond just our type differences, we have very different triggers and you might say insecurities. It doesn't show up exactly the same, even though we're both sexual self-pres. And so once we started looking at the cycle that way, and it's like, oh, people's social instincts show up differently, people's self-pres instincts show up differently, beyond just like differences in type. Even like exact type twins are doing social, or doing their sexual, or doing their self-pres very differently. And so then it became, I don't know whose idea it was, but like the zones had like stems, and each sort of stem was like basically like a stacking. Like the last, if you're zone 1, which would be the sexual, zone 2, which would be the social expansive, and zone 3, which would be the self-pres. Basically, if you're overemphasizing zone 1 and zone 2, and your last zone is zone 3, that's going to create a certain relationship to that instinct versus someone who's on the opposite end. And so started to observe that in people. I was like, oh wow, this is actually real. And so it took off from there.
Yeah, it's like a blind spot within the stack, within each instinct.
Yeah, so just because I can, like, this took me a while to, like, how do I put it, like, not be, like, getting annoyed that there was, like, way describing a stacking to your dominant instinct or something.
Right.
So if you got, 1 is sexual, spark, 2 is expansion and pursuing. And that's social.
Competing.
3 is condensing, coalescing, fixing, which is 3. Then the stems, like they've been writing it like, for example, my sexual is 3-2. So that correlates with the self-pres social stacking. But I like that. I like how it's just written like a 3-2.
3-2, yeah. Right.
Or my self-pres, right, is 1-3.
1-3 self-pres.
And my social is 2-3, right?
2-3, yeah.
And so that's like, that kind of, instead of it going like, oh, social self-pres social, it's just it kind of cleans it up, because like sometimes how fucking whatever drives me crazy.
Too many things.
Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to like kind of put that out there just because, and whatever.
Yeah, it's been super juicy because, as we all know, just from the history of this podcast, I've been a social sexual hater just from like, you guys are doing social wrong.
Lo and behold.
Stop doing that.
Mhm.
But then when I would meet other social self-pres, I was like, finally, this will be the correct way to do things. And then they would still do it wrong. So I was like, what is going on? Why
Mhm.
am I not getting like the right hit? You know, like why aren't people doing things the way I would do them?
Yeah,
Right.
And so now fleshing out these differences, like even other social self-pres 911 still have a different social, like instinctual stem than I do. And that's, I mean, it's been really pretty dramatic actually.
So what's your stem that the
My
other social
social
self-pres are not doing right?
Your social
I'm
zone
t-
stem.
I'll go through all of them. Social is 2-1. So
Mhm.
that's the social sexual. Maybe we should just stop saying it.
Don't stop saying that. Yeah, just tell them
Okay,
what's
just
2-1. Yeah.
Yeah,
I still
2-1.
want to say
I'm the
it,
I'm the best. That's what it is. That's what
Yeah.
it says specifically on the blog. It says the best one.
Yeah, and it mentions your name and there's a picture of
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, I'm 2-1 for social. I'm 3-2 for self-pres and sexual.
Mhm.
So yeah, the 2-1, and I mean, maybe we could even just get into it, but that was pretty big for me to realize just because it did teach me that I was kind of doing social in a really different way than other people were doing it. Feels like other people are just trying to like create a container and something habitual kind of right away. And I was like, what is going on? Why does it, and all of these like criticisms would come up. And anyway, it just helped me realize I have a lot of kind of restless energy when it comes to social connections, despite being a social self-pres.
So what
stacking.
does a 2-1 social mean?
like you're
Like what-
tracking being bored and stuff a lot.
So
Social
for
one
for
thing.
people who are listening, just to follow along, there's a few blog posts about this. I'm going to link in the show description. But basically, each zone in all the instincts, as an overview, is doing like, for example, zone 2 is expanding and signaling and presenting, and then zone 1 is wanting to be aroused and stimulated. And so
change things
2-1
up.
represents like the the name I came up with it is the flake, or the the viral gossip hour. So it's like
Yeah, that was great.
so
The tabloids.
the tabloids, the sort of like the pop aspect of the social instinct of
Reality
just,
TV commentator.
Yeah. I'm Gossip Girl here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
viral memes and just like gossip.
I was thinking about it also that without having 3 in my social, there is a way that I am kind of like refusing to be tethered down, or at least like I have a pretty strong resistance to be tethered down. And the benefit of that, I think, is my kind of social observation skills. Like I am able to kind of stay tapped into this like wider realm and experience the chemistry that people have between each other, which is where that analysis comes from. That I think if more of my energy was rooted in just trying to secure something and stabilize something and keep it like grounded and dependable, I'd kind of lose some of that.
I think the way to attack this would be we should go through each instinct and all 3 zones in each instinct. And then we can talk about the stems and like compare those. Cause for example, I want to ask Alexandra, what does it mean to be a 2-1 versus a 2-3 social self-pres? These kind of things.
Right.
And I could just imagine a listener just like glazing over. 'Cause it's just like getting too in the weeds before they have a sense of what we're fucking talking about.
So let's just start with social, since we've already done that.
Yeah.
So zone 2 in social, because zone 2 in all the instincts represents expansion, signaling, presenting, competing. It's like if zone 1 is like your own internal spark, like what I'm turned on by, zone 2 is what do you do with that? Like how do I get this validated? How do I compete, or how do I make something of this out there? And so when you get into the social instinct for zone 2, that's making a name for yourself, seeking likability and fame, a social identity. Like, what is my place relative to other people? What is my impact on other people? How you garner attention? How you get yourself witnessed and validated? And so, what you might be insecure in this zone about is your status relative to other people, and how much you're being ignored, if you're shunned, if you're not invited. this is the outward representation of the social instinct. And then when we go to zone 1, which is the initiating aspect of all of this is how do you incite sort of new edges and like interactions that hook you and testing social boundaries, or so this is the trying to create like a social frenzy or controversy or drama just to get some kind of spark or aliveness going.
It's just trying to like make things happen socially, like create those connections, or being excited to create
No,
those.
this is about trying to provoke new, like the zone 1 is always about new spark. So it's trying to destroy. You're triggered by too much stability. Like, think about what David does all the time, where it's like throwing a fire into the social realm to sort of create a new edge. So you get sort of the provocateur, instigator. If there's too much stability, if there's not enough disruption, and then what draws you?
What are they? So, yeah, like what are they trying to get though? Like, what is the thing you're trying to like? What is the disruption you get? Social.
Well, you're trying to be hooked. You're trying to find a new edge. You're trying to like basically blow something up so that there's new things get created when we blow things up.
Just
like
social interestingness, basically.
Social, edges, new boundaries. So you want to disrupt stability in zone 1 for all the instincts. So why is it that some social types are just always sort of risking their reputation to create new sparks all the time? That's zone 1.
That's our boy David.
And this explains the issue with David.
Can you explain that a bit more, David? How do you experience yourself as a
I'd rather
rowdy,
others,
troublemaker?
What's that? Yeah, I'd rather other people, aggrandize me. No,
it's like the status quo. Like, you're triggered by too much status quo, too much stability. It's like, I think the way you talked about it is like, what are we even doing here if we're not like trying to burn it down all the time?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of don't understand what people are doing in chats if they're like talking about meals and, just or whatever, like, I don't know.
I mean, is like social, like, for lack of a better term, like social fun? Like just like social.
I wouldn't say fun. No, I wouldn't
think
say
it's like
fun.
frenzy a little bit. I think it's just something going on in the energy. Like if it's too contained and too like, I don't want to say dependable, but that is the word that comes up. Like if it's too just consistent, there's like nothing to feed on. There's nothing to like be excited by and react to and blah, blah, blah.
So it's like wanting the excitement.
Well, and it's wanting there to be something that could be destructive.
Yeah, that's a key. Burning it down, like you wanted to risk burning down whatever's been already established in the social dynamic,
sort of to bust into through new membranes or whatever.
So what would be like a difference between like a social blind, like dropping a bomb in the social space versus a zone 1 social instinct activation thing?
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that not every social blind does that in the social realm. That's one of the interesting things about this, is that some things that I thought were just, this is just what every social blind does. Not every social blind is doing what David's doing. I'm not to that degree. I mean, of course we have like unintentional social, but there's social blinds that this is all they do, is throwing these sort of bombs. And there are, of course, people who have social understacking who do that as well. And then there are people who have social understacking who don't do that for whatever reason.
Yeah, early days of Facebook Enneagrammer, but also back on the forum you and I met on, John, I was just constantly a loud presence, throwing in, like, I don't know, just incendiary comments about people and sexual content and, just stuff like that.
Well, because part of what I would imagine that based on the way we're describing it, like people listening like I could like if I was new to this conversation and didn't know you as well, and I'd hear all this incendiary social stuff, I'd be like, oh, are you just like being a dick? And like I don't ever experience you actually just like being a dick. You know, I experience you as like always being like basically very kind to people actually. So and you are like sexual, but you're not like, I mean, maybe some people would think you were creepy, but like I don't find you ever be like creepy. So like what is the texture of the way that you're provoking that isn't what maybe most people have in mind, which is like being like a 4chan asshole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess you could just say, oh, it's just this, does that just mean being a dick? Not necessarily.
David, you're like is never being a dick in my experience, you know, but it is provocative, and most people's approach to being provocative socially is being some kind of asshole.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think being an instigator or a provocative is always going to seem like you're being an asshole to someone. Some 9-wing-1 is going to thinks that David is an asshole. There's a lot of people who think like David's an asshole because being provocative is always going to rub someone the wrong way. So I don't really give much credence to that, because if you're provocative and if you're in doing zone 1, that's the whole point, is to make people's boundaries uncomfortable or to incite something. And so someone is always going to be unhappy with creating a new edge. Like that's always going to be an issue.
I agree with you. I guess like, you know, like somebody goes, oh, I'm really edgy online, I must be a zone 1 social or something. And it's like, that's not like, I want to get more at the like specific, you know.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Because
I mean,
like
for me, it just feels like particular things that a person needs like to feed their social instinct. And to me, it feels, and maybe this is not in line with like the language that you guys have been using, but like that need to just feed on something, like something interesting and provocative and like, yeah, a little bit disruptive needs to be going on, even interrelationally, or there's nothing for me here.
Well, I would say with David, my experience of you and Alexander, you might be good to like as with your social perspective, but like you have it like David, you have a natural sense of where like certain personal arteries are in people.
Yes.
And then you want to touch them in a social space. So like it's different than when you're one-on-one where you can touch like an artery of meaning or something like that. Like you'll do it in a place where there could be a lot of eyes on the interaction that normally people wouldn't bring attention to, if that makes sense. So like you might, you know, that's like you'll do like the sexual dance in a way that doesn't, not just like flirting, but you will like kind of say something that everybody can sense that the person you're speaking to is maybe like actually into this thing or charged by the thing you're addressing. So you're not just being like a flirt or something. You're actually like finding something that is like personally charged. Yeah. And you're addressing it when it's in a social realm.
Sometimes it takes the form of that thing you're talking about, touching on, you know, something I'm seeing in the person, you know, that's meaningful and sensitive and all of that.
Yes.
And also kind of sometimes doing a flippant but real therapy in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. That kind of combination. It's, you know, 9-wing-1 psychology dork, you know, combined with you know, some trickster wanting to shake things up energy.
Yeah, that's my experience of you, at least, is like it's charged, but you'll go there, and but you're doing both serious and playful at the same time, but you're like actually bringing attention, but it's like you're doing it in a social dynamic.
It's like doing therapy in front of the whole rest of the group,
right,
with one person, and knowing that it's a show. And I'm into that sort of frothing, that, you know, energy of that crackle.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Just knowing David over the years, even just I remember like EIDB boards. I was always sort of surprised that as a 9-wing-1 that no one has gotten more people talking about him than David. over the years. Like I've seen months where all the forums were talking about stuff that he had done. So like one of the out of all of us, one of the most infamous figures out there, just because he's willing to go there. He's going to go there.
Yeah. Totally.
But I mean, even just 1-to-1, I think that shows up. Like it's just David can, for a 9, he's more blunt than you might expect.
Right. Alexander, what would you say, like when I was in that one chat, I won't say the name of it, for a while, is there a way you describe my behavior there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, and this is, I think, the difference between like 1-2 and 2-1, me being 2-1. That for me, it was more about like being in like the buzz of things, but that, and being like witnessed and making my influence known or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You kind of had this different thing where you would kind of come in, check to see if there was anything going on. And if people were talking about bread or recipes or something, you would either just say, this is the worst thing I've ever heard ever in my whole life, or you would just peace out. Or if there was a conversation that was kind of interesting, you would kind of lock on and kind of dominate the conversation, actually. But there's this way that there's like a casual, like the casualness that can come with like 2 or 3, or at least a more casual than 1. It's not really your flavor. You're not very casual.
Yeah, I'm tracking.
When it comes to conversations.
Yeah, electricity and stuff.
And it's not necessarily even the subject matter, because I think we're all capable of like engaging with subject matter, and like having interesting things to talk about and say. It's the quality. There's like a certain quality of engagement that you have that I don't think the rest of us have, that is just like naturally more provocative. Like, I imagine that people that engage themselves with you just feel really exposed really fast. Yeah.
So, David, you're 1-2 stem and Alexander is 2-1 stem.
That's right.
Yeah, because like, I think Alexander's point about you exposing people very quickly, I think that it can explain some of the projections that,
For sure.
100%, yeah.
Getting naked quickly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think that, the 3 of us are social blind, but the way that we engage socially is different.
Oh yeah, it's all different ones, right?
Yeah, like David's 1-2.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm 3-2, and you're 2-3. Now, if we talk about 2, the difference between 2-3 and 2-1 is pretty big, because you're trying to put your stamp out there. You're out of all of us, you're the one who's like trying to plant your flag in the Enneagram world. You've written a book, and you're always talking about, what are ways that we can get our stuff
like
permeating, the Enneagram field more. And it's a very different approach to social, and you're social blind. So like, where the fuck is that coming from? Like, why is that?
My politics thing, I think, is 2-3.
Yeah.
I'm interested in like ideology, and like, because I'm like, what is influencing how people shape reality? And even with like the Enneagram world, I've thought like, I don't want to be like the top name or something like that, but I want like I've always seen it as like an egg, and I want to like fertilize the egg a little bit, like I want the energy in the egg. And then yours 3-2 is like your sort of like
the container,
the social holding environment thing. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, like that's kind of like just asking the guys like, what kind of social role do I end up playing? It's like the through line. Like I'm sort of keeping the steady line through, and I can do or sort of the casual, I'm going to meet you wherever you're at. Like I'll find whatever way that we can connect. And so I can do the center of like a group, whatever thing's happening, where there's sort of the steady through line. So when you look at 3-2, 2-3 is like John's like the influencer, A-list player.
Naturally.
But 3-2 is more of the sort of enclosed, the family, the friend group, and
it's the setting, like, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, I mean that's why he's the architect of sound.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But even just the borders of the group, that's something I've always thought of is who's coming into the group, how do we expand our group, and
territory.
There's definitely layers to the group. There's this, the center with us, and then there's outer layers of people that we're comfortable with to certain degrees. And I have lists where I put people in different tiers.
You also are the one that gets the most upset when disruption happens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. That's another
That's
You get, like,
thing to
very
look
upset
at.
about it.
That's good.
Yeah, what each one is triggered by. So in zone 2, it's more about the
Like not
triggered
being
by
recognized,
being
getting attention.
recognized.
Mm-hmm.
Status in the hierarchy for 2-3, and sort of just like being liked and being paid attention to for 2-1. But 3-2 and all the instincts want a certain kind of stability, and anything that threatens that stability is going to be upsetting. And so, I've had friends, most of my friends I've known for a very, very long time. And I'm just one of those people. And when it comes to people, I don't want to give up what I've accumulated. I just don't.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So if I have a friend and I think they're, good people, like I just want to hold on to those people,
Yeah. It's like
indefinitely.
self-pres fence or wall around a social group, a small, group of people.
Good. That's cool.
So yeah, that's social. Is there anything we want to talk about?
I think that makes sense. Maybe Alexandra, though, how would you characterize 2-1 STEM social as a social self-pres? Because you're not as chaotic as a social sexual.
No.
So, like, how does that play?
I don't know. The way that the thing that made the most sense to me is you guys talked about the one zone having an overlap with frustration.
Mhm.
And I see a lot of frustration in myself when it comes to the social instinct. And so it also being okay. So the 2 overlaps with social, and then I'm a social dominant in my regular stacking. So there's this like extra super high stakes, it feels like, because it's my dominant position. And yeah, when it comes to that one zone, I feel like I am very sensitive to like the chemistry of the connection that's going on, or interest in each other. If this person's just as interested in me as I am in them, if I feel like it's waning, then I'm just like, okay, it must not be there. Let's move on. Where I feel like other social self-pres can be a little more like having a bunch of colleagues instead of friends or something like that. And I can be a little bit like, you guys aren't friends. You've just known each other for a long time, or you have the same business interest. That's not That's not being friends. You don't like each other.
No, I find it interesting that regardless of what that instinct, the positioning you're stacking, like John being social 2-3, and I believe Josh is also social 2-3, that there's like a similar kind of thrust about, like social, that you sort of, even though as a social blind, like you're kind of trying to do the same thing with that instinct. And so that's been really interesting to think about, is that, regardless of your stacking, you might have a different sort of relationship to that instinct for someone who has the same stacking, and you might have more in common with someone who has the same zone stem, even though you have, different stackings.
Yeah. I mean, last weekend when we were all together, just knowing this information kind of gave, David, I was already messaging you about this, but kind of gave me a new relationship with David, because I was like, oh, we both have this like kind of dumb, silly thing going on kind of at all times. Yeah. And it's just like, nothing's happening. Okay, what's going on over there?
Yeah.
And at one point, him and I were just like being so stupid together. And it was
Attention
great.
deficit.
While the rest of you guys were
Perfect.
just trying to regulate each other. I was like, okay, I guess that's what you want to do.
They're going to be boring.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah,
out of
it's
character
been
for you
cool.
two to be stupid together.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's a new thing. It's a new development.
No, it's been a really cool lens to look at stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, with self-pres, a huge wake-up call for me has been like seeing how I'm doing zone 1 in self-pres, and especially without any zone 3, like zone 1, 2. And as an 8 who has self-present and stacking, like this has been one of those mysteries my entire life of like, why can't I fucking do the thing that high school dropouts are doing? Like, just self-pres is so dumb and people are making all this money. Why am I not rich? Like what is the problem? What is going on? And I have this history of self-pres blind partners. And so it sort of like connected some dots for me where I was like, oh, I do have sort of like a really groundless, because I'm not doing zone 3. I'm not doing the sort of fortifying, consolidating, or even thinking about like
or making it into a pattern or a routine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just thinking about like a more of a call out is like zone 3 is like for self-pres is what it will cost you long term. And as you guys know, that's a huge blind spot for me. Like I'll fucking move halfway across the country for this. And even sort of consolidating into yourself, like this is my thing in self-pres with zone 3. And so there's like a sort of attention deficit in self-pres without zone 3. And so that's, I think, another thing to really point out is what zone you're not doing and what that's saying about your life, you know?
Yeah, it's a new blind spot.
Yeah, we need to go over the zones of self-pres, but I remember when I first came to your place way back, I was like stunned by how blank it was. There was no art or books or something, and you know, like I'm 1-3, right?
1-3, yeah. 1-3. You're 1-3. I'm 1-2.
So like, I mean, mine is like the juice turned into stuff.
John's,
right?
You know?
John's the stuff king.
Fetish.
Yeah.
Object.
And it's not just like, oh, I save wrappers in Tupperware. It's like, no, it's like it's got to be art or a statue of a god or something like something charged. And so I you know, we have a lot of similarities, and so I was like expecting some similar vibe. And I was like, wow, there's fucking nothing in here.
I don't. I don't
That's
like. Don't like to be tied down by too much stuff. That's been an interesting pattern. I mean, my self-pres shows up more I guess ephemerally. Like I'm more interested in if it's virtual in a way, or if it's in an idea space. That's something I can play with because I don't have to touch down with stuff. But that's something that's been really interesting to observe. Is like, oh, I'm really not wanting to be weighed down by foundations.
We were looking at your collages this morning.
Oh yeah,
you were noting that you're not wanting any of the objects or images or whatever to be clearly in any one place or a particular environment or something, and not touching ground or something.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing because we're trying to figure out ways we can observe this without having people talk about it. And we were wondering if this was showing up in the collage styles. And the collages that I like the most, one thing that I figured out that I needed to do is that it needed to feel like it was never stopping. Like anytime I had something that felt like it stopped, it felt like it was somewhere, and I needed to feel like it was nowhere. And the only way I could do that is the images need to feel like they're moving. And so we looked at like, is it just like a sexual self-pres thing? But someone else who has a similar self-pres 1-2, their collages were similarly liquid and airy. Like
interesting.
And so that's been like, man, if we can actually find the way these zone stems are showing up in different ways, that's one way that we've been able to spot it.
Yeah,
it's
so
cool.
Let's go through the zones of self-pres. So what is a 1 in self-pres?
So in zone 1 self-pres, this is about transforming the body, like trying to seek new edges of experience. And you know, this gets into that realm of when you look at like how can these extreme athletes be self-pres types where people are pushing the limits of survival. So that's an example of zone 1, not necessarily saying that they have to be zone 1, but that's what zone 1 is about, is trying to seek these new edges. It's also trying to like, you know, the improvisational poetry of the moment where it's like, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I want to jump in and create something unexpected, find a new edge. And so you're triggered by limits, you're triggered by routine. It's like you're always, if you're in zone 1, you're trying to find a new spark in your lifestyle or through experience. And so, for example, zone 1-3 or 1-3 stem, calling that if you're triggered by the absence of improvisational transformation. So like the shaman thing, which John has a lot of, so calling that the hungry shaman tempting fate. So like examples like Christian Bale, who is always doing something transformative with his body for his roles. Wim Hof, remember him? Yeah. His whole breathwork thing. Jodorowsky's another example with his psycho magic of And so like self-pres, sexual in self-pres, when I was thinking about it, it's like sometimes it feels like this is what people imagine what like a typical sexual self-pres would be. But it's been interesting
that's what I
That
think.
is dead on. That's totally true.
Yeah, but it is about the self-pres. It's
that's
about
right.
transformation in the self-pres. But I think this is what people imagine a typical self-pres would be, or a sexual self-pres would be. But then 1-2 is, sort of like seeking these impractical extremes to dive into. And that's essentially the story of my life. It's like, just like a thrill seeker. One person we typed as 1-2 is Rob is a storm chaser, like literal chasing storms. So like
that's so cool.
Yeah, like you're risking your own sort of foundations to find a new edge. So that's zone 1.
One of the funny, what happened last weekend that was hilarious is Emeka's brought out some kind of
experimental progesterone.
Experimental progesterone, and had us all lift up our shirts and put it on our belly buttons. Which is like, what's going on?
Navels.
And I was like, oh, is this supposed to be taken in the belly button? He was like, no, it just made sense there. A body type. And it's so funny.
I'm always finding some random new supplement or
totally.
Like every single year, every 6 months, I'm always like, oh, this new thing that I'm doing.
Whereas I'm 3-2 and I've got a steady.
Yeah, you do the same shit.
Yeah, you eat the same shit every. Do you still do the banana peanut butter?
I finally got off of that one after 15 years. So.
Wow. What a wild man.
Oh man, branching out.
And David wears the same fucking shirt.
Well, that's the other thing too, is there's a thing with clothing that we think is a thing, which is like I'm 3-2, sort of the quasi SPSO, and I've got like a uniform that I've been wearing forever. It's either dark blue,
too, I think.
Black, or dark gray, and different iterations of that. Occasionally there could be some other color or a stripe, but that's when I'm really feeling wild.
Your clothes, like I used to go to do breath work in Baltimore at this school, and it was like, we'd be there for a day or two and mostly outside under a pavilion, and so people would dress like sort of like comfortable, but it'd be almost look like pajamas in a certain way, and like you could like go to either like a business meeting or a pajama party in your clothes.
That's exactly what I'm going for.
Yeah, the very first day, the very, very super first day ever that I met you, the very first thing you did was, my pants are super soft. They look like outdoor pants, but they're really soft and comfortable. Like, nice to meet you, David.
Hi, good to meet you, Alexandra.
I remember I was at Broken Land. I remember that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that would be like 3-2 would be the cozey thing.
The cozey.
Oh yeah. I actually said that in I don't know, in one of the chats. I was like, I think 3-2 is going to be the coziest and everything.
Yeah, you, Alexandra?
I've
3-2. Mm-hmm. I have my uniform too.
You guys have made fun of me about cozy pants, right? Mm-hmm. Like one of my exes, I would get irritated with her that she didn't want to put on cozy pants when she came over. That she was wearing her tight jeans. It was like bothering me that she wasn't cozy.
My sister's like that. She's probably also 3-2, self-pres 9-1.
And surprised, like Joseph being social sexual 4, he's 3-2 in self-pres. And I mean, there's been some debate of whether he has self-pres in his stacking, but that's part of that reason it's so prominent with him, because he's always like, taking photos of him at restaurants or showing pictures of his books. He said he was thinking about pensions when he was like 21, and like he has like a very stable career.
I don't even know what a pension is.
Is he 3-1 in social? Is that
3-1 in social? Yeah.
So he's got another self-pres.
And yeah.
There also. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's been interesting to watch. Just self-pres blinds who have self-pres in 3-2, and how they got a more stable self-pres than I do.
So something Oh, go ahead.
Well, what is 2 in self-pres? Like, because I
Okay.
get that 1 is like the transformative and 3
Yeah.
is like the solidifying. But I don't
So
understand.
zone 2 is where you start developing your skills, wanting to become recognized for your abilities and building a reputation. This is where you start to,
You're
being
like known for your brand or something.
Yeah, being known for your skills, being rewarded for them in the marketplace, so making money, like how building a business around it. And so, just you have insecurity about rewards and recognition for your skills and abilities. And so getting competitive, like 2-3 in self-pres, calling the podium credentials business wheeler dealer kind of person. This is not being rewarded for your skills. 2-1 is the big picture jack of all trades, and so you for 2-1 in self-pres, not wanting to become too specialized or one-dimensional with the things that they're doing, and so they keep going, pick up a skill and go on to something else.
Would like a tech person be like a 2-3?
You could have some tech people there. I mean, there's some tech people who are also 2-1, like just some entrepreneurs who are serial entrepreneurs who just started. Like Elon Musk could be an example of a tech person who's 2-1, where he just starts a bunch of businesses and moves on to the next
startup is largely the 2 space for self-pres,
right?
The startup world.
Yeah. The business people that are known as great business people or whatever, that are personalities as business people.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are the 2s. Yeah.
Yeah,
Feels like 3-2 specifically. I had this thing earlier today that I was like 3-2 in self-pres is like the sugar daddy, sugar mom kind of
right.
step.
There you go. Yeah, there it is.
The ones holding it down, taking care of y'all.
Yeah. They've got the
daddy.
biggest nest egg. That's
yeah,
the nest egg.
David, that's you. You were taking care of us all weekend.
Oh, yeah.
The sugar daddy. I want to write that down. That's good.
For all our dinners.
Good.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's fucking good. The sugar daddy. Let me write
Sugar
that down.
David.
Something else I was going to say is that it seems like, because Emeka, I do experience you as self-prezi, but I experience you as like very playful with your self-pres. So maybe that's it. Just kind of constantly experimenting with new like supplements or new, I don't know, adventures and stuff like that. You do always have like your little like, tinctures and supplement, all kind of always
clothes,
eternally changing clothes. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
I'm not really big on clothes, but it doesn't feel like I have a distinct, I'll completely revamp whatever I'm doing with self-pres. And it feels like willing to flip the table over and start over.
And like I said on DAA, also sometimes you'll wear stuff that is like room grabber. You know what I mean? It grabs the attention of the room. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting.
John has a bit of that too with his snakeskin suits.
Yeah, it's funny because over the years we've seen sexual self-pres or sexual types who were very much, their self-presentation, or you could say there wasn't really much you could say that, there's their sexual instinct. So this has been kind of like an interesting thing to look at it. Like even people who don't have sexual in the stacking, who have more of these zone 1s, you're like, that's maybe the reason why they have a more mercurial personality. And then someone who has 3-2 across the board, you might be wondering, they have sexual in the stacking, but you might be wondering, they're really like self-contained and really kind of
those are
stable.
Safe,
those are the bread people of the bread people, like condensed bread people.
So new dimensions
bread
to bread
dominant.
People.
Yeah. Something else I was going to say too, just an example, because I saw that you messaged us saying these are the next dates for the next time we're going to meet up. There's a way that you and John you guys have so much restlessness with like the next thing that's going to happen. Like just today, John was asking about like, we need to go to Puerto Rico next month to do this. And now Emeka's, and I'm thinking as like a 3-2 self-pres, I was like, why do you guys think money? Just where do you think I'm going to get the funding to do all of this kind of stuff? But you guys are just like, need a new thing, need a thing to move forward to.
No, that's a really good example. It feels like, as a sexual type, it's interesting to see that, this is where I'm seeking edges. This is I'm doing it in the self-pres.
Interesting.
And, when my sexual instinct is, more contained. And so that's an interesting thing to look at. Like, all right, me, John, and Kaisa got zone 1 in self-pres, and we're just like wanting to leave the planet through our own
all the time.
Yeah,
So
and
funny.
I I don't know where if I can afford it and all that kind of stuff, but I just emailed the kung fu people today. The guys that put me on,
Cool.
you know, and like traveling
That's
all the
great,
time
though.
and eating crickets and whatever,
Yeah.
and I used to, not as much anymore because I just don't have as much opportunities. But like when I was younger, I used to do things that were like very physically dangerous and reckless a lot. Like
Yeah.
I had a whole phase of like playing with gasoline and Molotov cocktails and like just like explosive things, and it was just like I don't know. I like would did I tell you like did I tell you about Fire Tuesdays in high
Yeah.
school? Which
I
I had a
think so.
rotating.
What's that?
I had a rotating schedule in high school.
Starting a fire in different
and-
places.
Yeah, so at the end of the day on Tuesdays, I have gym.
This
and
sounds
so we
socially
take
interesting
rubbing
to me.
Yeah, we
Like
take.
one, two.
I would take rubbing alcohol and other kind of flammable chemicals and like throw them all over the showers in my high school gym and do
Nice.
things like a fire slip and slide into the showers and stuff like this. And it was like
Oh, that's cool.
my hair and my arms would be completely singed off and stuff like this. But it was just like this, like a way to just like fuck with shit or something in a in a contained zone or something. But but even outside of school, I was like just doing stuff with fire all the time and other dumb things. And so anyway, like I don't know, it makes sense with like getting an edge in that way.
Yeah. Brought new dimensions to like, all right, so this is where my sexual sort of like seeking edges is showing up. It's not doing it in the social instinct. This is where I'm sort of like risking shit.
Yeah, and as we'll talk about when we talk about sexual self-presence, you guys have a lot of consistency in like the sexual connections that you have. But it kind of creates a new dimension to the stacking because it's really self-pres material that you guys are lunatics with.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So zone 3, we just covered David and Alexandra. The 3-1, the 3-1. We don't really. Do we know anybody who's 3-1 in self-pres? I don't know if we've typed anybody yet. Oh, Kristen.
Totally
Kristen's
true.
Kristen.
Oh, Kristen.
Kristen's a 3-1. Yeah.
Kristen, that makes sense.
So zone 3 is what it will cost you in the long term, the short and long term, consolidating your resources. And this is where you start to specialize and master your craft and build a career and build like a long-term foundation that you can count on. And so you're insecure about losing stability, insecure about, resources. And so when you get into the 3-1 space, you get that sort of, this person is a source for something like the palm reader or the
that's cool.
tattoo artist, where it's like you go to this person for this specialized thing that
that's so
only
cool.
they can do. And Kristen has that sort of vibe with her whole self-pres is just like she's the dream interpreter and all the other stuff that she does. And
very niche.
Very niche. And it's also just, you don't want to become too accessible or too stale because, you don't, it doesn't, you're avoiding the zone 2 space of,
like marketability or something.
Yeah. It's like, you don't want it to be too accessible.
And also you don't want to be lacking zone 2. You sort of don't want to be pigeonholed into a certain label or something. You know what I mean? You want a certain, maybe undefinable.
Well, I mean, I think zone 3 is sort of wanting to specialize, but
I'm just thinking, like if you're on that 3-1 line,
okay,
that I don't know. Yeah,
I guess there's a sort of like wanting the improvisational thing that is hard to define about the combination of 1-3, 3 and 1.
Yeah.
Because there is something transformational about, dream work and palm reading and that kind of stuff where it's like, I don't know what's going to happen here.
The way that I kind of am understanding 3-1 in any of the spaces is that it's like I have grabbed the thing that I'm interested in and now I'm going to like fucking juice it for all it's worth. I'm just going to bleed it completely dry. And so the hope is that it can be this like eternal source of newness and novelty and stuff like that.
It's
and so
word.
With Kristen and Dreamwork, it is, I mean, how is she ever going to run out of material with that?
It's my word for SPSX. It's fecundity. right?
Yeah.
That's what it is right there.
That's been to bring that one around to come around to sexual, because
Yeah, let's
in
do it.
sexual, I'm 3-1 here, and it's been interesting to sort of like, I mean, most people are going to be 3-2 across the, or not across the board, but in general. But what is 3-1? How's that showing up for me? One thing that's been interesting to observe is just that my own experience of chemistry and attraction, in a way, almost doesn't have anything to do with the other person. Like, it's my own. And I've said this before, where it feels like, you know, I'm experiencing you as a sort of the other person, the other as like as a function of my own experience.
Right.
Yes,
So
yeah.
SPSX.
That's
And
so funny.
and so it feels like, you know, whatever got me in or whatever hooked me about this has to stay that way and needs to keep, you know, sort of feeding on itself in order for me to stay interested. So it feels like the attraction is this tight sliver that is self-contained with my own experience. And so when you sort of like, okay, avoiding zone 2, where it's the, I don't know if you guys relate to this, but the courtship or the us as a couple, or even like how the chemistry relates to other competitors isn't really something that does anything for me. Like, you know, if that makes any sense.
And weird.
When we were hanging, out, Alexandra, I think, asked you something about like attraction insecurities, and you were like,
Yeah,
I
like
don't really
if you feel
feel-
insecure. Well, the question was like, do you ever have like energy or self-consciousness around like the literal looks part, like the literal like attraction, like meets, I guess.
Right.
and you
right.
you were like, not really. I was like, what the fuck? You know, I was like, my life is like, what? I was like, what?
I mean, okay, to give it some more context, it feels like attraction is its own self-contained thing. And if someone's into me, whether they're into someone else has nothing to do with them being into me.
And it's
What?
and it's unrelated. It's like the way we've got zone 2 correlating partly to attachment. It's like it's not looking at or even turning the mind to just what would be considered good looking anywhere else. It's like you're saying it's its own
Its own thing.
alien,
Its own
new
life.
alien space that like whole other looks or creatures could be in there. But you know what I mean, or something.
That's how
go
Kaiser
ahead.
was
Go
explaining
ahead,
it
John.
too. Yeah.
I literally see life as a brutal sexual competition.
Yeah, right.
Like, I have that thought consciously that was previously unconscious as I walk down the street. Like, I recognize that as a moment-to-moment reality, where it's like I literally think all of reality is a sexual dance,
Right.
and that I am fighting within this sexual dance reality. Like it is like that is just my whole fucking being. And so you're like, yeah, well, it's just its own thing. I'm like, what?
Yeah, well, put it this way,
that's
like
the social blind, the
when-
quasi social blind
Right,
aspect
right.
of it.
yeah, but because for me, like when I first started out thinking about sexuality, I was curious. I wanted to figure out like, what do women find attractive? But then the older I got and the more experience I have, and I realized specifically what women found attractive about me, I stopped caring about, like, you know, like, because it's like there's so many things that you could find attractive about people, and I think there's so many ways that attraction can be experienced that I'm like, oh yeah, she could be into like 5 different guys at the same time. You know, like
We
that's
just triggered John.
No. Triggered. Gotta be me.
You know.
Gotta be me.
because attraction feels like it's like, okay, you could be into this guy because of his physicality, or you could be into this guy because of his confidence, or you could be. So for me, it was like, I have my thing that is attractive about me. Maybe somehow my personality, my, you know, physical, whatever it is, the Emeka thing. And she could be into that and also be into someone else completely different. And obviously, you know, you can get sucked into someone and be like, I only want to be into you, but I'm not, it doesn't feel real to think that I'm the only person that she could ever be into.
Activated. Activated.
It's interesting too.
We have to stop the podcast right now.
While you have a meltdown. Yeah. It's interesting though, John, like the way you were describing it, I know we're trying to get away from the sackings, but I'm doing the sackings still.
Yeah.
It's like SPSO, you're almost describing it, and then, and then linking that to the Bhava Chakra, where SPSO is animals or beasts. Your approach is almost like animal competition, like physical. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I relate to that too in my own quiet, not as intense 9 way.
Well, so I'm supposedly 3-2, which is the solidifying self-pres, and then some of the peacocking too.
No, right. sexual.
In sexual. No, but he
said self-pres.
Oh, he's referring to 3 as self-pres.
3 is self-pres within sexual.
Yeah.
And then
like the self-pres social within sexual.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so the self-pres of sexual is locking it down.
Right.
And the 3 or the 2 within sexual is display and peacocking, right?
Right. Yeah. This is where you're the one
comparing, making sure I'm better, you know, competing.
So some like with other sexual types, I will sometimes be like, I feel like I'm a bit more sexual than other sexual types because, like, and you know, if my baby sister is listening to this, like, just skip ahead. But like, I am so focused on
the
sex,
consummation. Yeah, the
consummation, the fucking, and having my, like, you know, something. For example, Emeka, like, you can be single for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could be because I need I need
like an
I
animal.
need to feed.
Yeah,
you know, and thankfully
it's
I have.
disturbing.
Yeah, but
freak.
And Alexandra, you know, fortunately our freak is matched because you're also 3-2, right?
Oh, I thought Alexandra wasn't that way at all.
No, not at all.
There's a lot of indignity under that dignity.
Yeah, like zone 3 is the consummation. It's the
the cuffing season. I saw
the cuffing season. It's like
I saw that and I was like, "That's us." There we go.
You know,
I want my eggs cracked. You know?
What?
I want my name dropped. That is 3-2, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
I'm
you
not
know,
fucking around
with you.
Put a ring on it.
Oh man. Yeah, so it's the consummation. And then 2 is that's the area where, you know, I want to be attractive. That's where you get competitive, you know, people are like, I'm going to steal your man. Like the game, having the most of like the fuckboy bimbo thing. This is David.
I'm 2-1.
2-1.
So
yeah, for those listening, we're all on a video call and David just started waving his hand as Emeka was explaining that.
We have many
saying
stories
hi to everyone
of David's girl controversies over the years.
David's serial seducing.
Yeah, he's inviting everyone to his sexual pool party.
Well, I mean, it's also, and then it's partly that I'm 1-2 in social. So like everything
True.
I'm doing that's, you know, other oriented in sexual and social is all in that flaky person, on that flaky line.
Yeah. That's a lot of chaos right there. So 2-1, you get the sort of heartbreaker himbo bimbo thing.
There we go.
Himbo extraordinaire right here.
Wanting to be
done. Next.
validated for being sexual and desirable. I think Joseph is also here. And the interesting thing, I mean, maybe this is more common in gay culture, but Joseph has this thing where in his relationships, he separates the commitment that he has with his partner from his sexual interest. Like that's something that's established from the beginning.
Sort of announces it, at the beginning.
Yeah, that I'm into you, I'm committed to you, but my sexual interest is wandering. I'm always, you know, he needs to flirt with other men, but not necessarily consummated ever.
Right.
And so that's
and because
that's,
because it's lacking zone 3, that's the consummation.
yeah,
You know,
never
it's,
happens.
it's not.
Oh,
gonna
it's not a
consummate.
necessity. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So would that in sexual create almost like a hard time pinning down your specific sexual desire, like in the sense of what you're into, like to
No.
give you more texture? What I mean is like my type is really specific,
Yeah,
you
right.
know, and you know, like David, you've had a lot of different kinds of partners, you know, like
Yeah.
just so is it like
I could see that. Like maybe there's more solidity in, well, because the thing about the sexual is that in order to maintain that sort of spark, there's a kind of mercurial need to have a new edge. And
Right.
I mean, I definitely see that for myself. Is I have less of a type than you do, John, for example.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I do have a type, but I don't. I have because I think one needs new blood. You know,
There-
more
Yeah.
often.
I do have 2 like really specific types, like
Mhm.
physically, and it's like for sure it like lights up the
Mhm.
whole switchboard. But I think because I'm 2-1, I also don't want to cut out the options. Okay? Yeah.
So 2 is about, okay, just so that I'm understanding. 2 is more about like is it about just receiving the validation that you're attractive?
Well, like the difference between 1-2 and 2-1 in sexual is like 1-2 is more
I'm my
you're
fix.
doing, you're looking, you're
Yeah.
hunting, targeting. And
Okay, so
then
it's more about
2
your particular like bloodlust in a way.
Right.
Well,
right.
With
well,
1?
in terms of like eyes, okay, like the 1-2 is the phallic eyes.
The
You
eye.
see,
Mhm.
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And then 2-1 is wanting to be seen.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who's hot, who's not? 2-1.
Sure. So
Mhm.
with 2, would you even say that it would be more about making sure that your like partner or the realm itself is attracted to you?
I mean, put it this way: 2-3.
Maybe that's more 2-3.
2-3 is
Yeah.
more about like how well you're playing the game, and so we call that one the pickup artist, or
Mhm.
even just like someone who is a good seductress or seducer. Of how to
Like the strategy.
the strategy of eliciting attraction or being wanted is in the 2-3 space.
Mhm.
And of course, with 2-3, like, or not with 2-3, but 2-1, there's kind of like wanting to having the option of people wanting you, but not necessarily feeling like you need to consummate it. Whereas 2-3, they're collecting, notches.
That's right.
They need to know
Oh,
that they can
interesting.
actually
Notch
get the
is
girl.
self-pres, right? It's the
Yeah.
thing, right?
Oh wow. So like a count. They're more concerned with, like the count.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that
maybe.
because
Yeah.
it's sort of
Metaphorically.
like missing
Body
zone
count.
1 of, you see that thing where guys who want, or girls who want to know that they can get the person that they're attracted to, just knowing that they can do that is 2-3. But then it begs the question, like, am I actually turned on by the
Right.
people that
Right.
I'm catching?
Mm.
And so the
Okay.
hookup realm
That makes
is
sense.
in that
Yep.
3-2, 2-3 space of either I just want to fuck whoever's, down to fuck, or just I need to know that I can get that girl or get
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
guy that
Right.
I want.
So it's missing that zone 1, which is like my super idiosyncratic desires and lusts and specific, charges and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Like pickup
Yeah, that makes
artists is,
sense.
can I just do this anywhere?
With anyone.
No
with
matter
anyone?
what, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting.
In a sense, like zone 1 is
Okay, yeah, I was
it's
just gonna ask about
destabilizing.
that.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
destabilizing because you do need a fix. And so, for example, with 3-2 and all the instincts, like in order to keep something stable, like for example, in social, for me, it's like you're going to have some interactions that don't necessarily turn you on. Like you're going to need to
Right, some
do certain
tolerance.
things. Like family is something like you're going to have to, there's certain family members that you don't particularly like, but they're your family, and it's like to keep the group together, you have to sort of like give up certain things. And so like in a long-term relationship, monogamy, for example, is a choice. It's something you have to do. Like you can't go chasing down whatever person you're interested in because you're committed to this one person. So it's like you have to sort of like put away zone one in order to have a stable relationship. And so yeah, that's one way I've been finding that is like if in certain instances you need to not do zone one if you want a certain kind of stability.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, and it would be that like initial pursuit thing. That initial like I'm frustrated, I have to go right now kind of thing. I need that comes with zone one, right?
Yeah. I mean,
related to
because it seems
too.
like
You just said frustrated. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because it seems like the two. I would say with the three, because Emeka, we had a conversation last weekend about the 3-2 with social, or maybe it was even before that. But you're 3-2 with social, and it's kind of just about like creating like a habitual container so that something interesting can happen within it.
Yeah.
You know, so I do experience you as having a lot more social tolerance than I have. But also it's like created all of these like longer lasting relationships because you can bear the points that aren't as high.
Yeah.
So that's really fucking interesting because that speaks to the cyclical movement, right? Like,
yeah.
And I haven't thought, I'm new to all this, but like, you know, Emeka like trying to create 3-2 container for the one to happen or something. You know what I mean? There's like,
right.
That seems like a thing because like, you know, like, I mean, even two of us with 3-2 sexual, it's like we have our container so that we can get to the one for each other.
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
Yeah.
And we get there.
We can tolerate. Yeah. Had to say it.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting.
John can't go a single moment without letting you guys all know.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
like,
there's a tolerance. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like that's the order. Like, okay, we need this first in order for this other zone to happen. And I guess it's like how you do the cycle is what this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Or how you approach it, because that kind of is how I've done like social connections too. As soon as I feel it kind of going stale, I'm just like, I'm not fucking committing to this. I'm not. It's gonna go dry, you know. Or if I don't feel seen, or if I don't feel like appreciated, or something like that, being too first. It's this kind of thing of just like, okay, we don't want each other. Okay, bye.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think about my self-pres being, you know, this group and the Enneagram stuff has been like the most consistent thing that I've worked on. And this thing is constantly transforming. It's never the same. And we've created something that's stable, but it's unstable for me, at least. Like my approach to it feels like, all right, you know, what's going to happen next? That feeling of what's going to happen next. So I'm doing zone 3 finally, but because I'm approaching it from zone 1 and zone 2.
Continuously interested,
You know, one of the things that I thought of later that was funny to me on the weekend was you made some kind of joke or comment about cleaning up David's messes. You know, and I was like, you know what? I as much as I love David, I've never felt the need to clean up a mess.
Oh, that's
and I was like,
interesting.
Emeka kind of likes that. Like, it keeps it interesting and diverse. You know, so he's got the container. He's like,
that's interesting.
He's my handler.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
But you know, like part of y'all's social chemistry in a certain way is that David's like this chaos
handling
king,
David.
and you're handling it, but like it gets you in the social juice chaos too.
Right.
Interesting.
He's a chaotic agent that's necessary.
David's done it again. Now I got to come in and fix it all up for us again.
Yeah, I'm just like, this is David, and you're like, I gotta clean it up, and I'm like, you do? He's like, I gotta do this.
I had to tell myself, like, dude, it's not up to you. I mean, it is, but I had to sort of like tell, like, dude, calm down. It's not like it's not
have
you
some
to just.
detachment.
It has to be done, but it's like, come on, dude, chill out.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, interesting.
But yeah, let's see. Is there anything I'm missing here? So we talked about sexual zone 2.
Are there any like STEM orders that we didn't cover?
Well, we didn't really. I get zone 1 for sexual. There's for 1-3. Zone 1 is just like my fix, and for any of the instincts, zone 1 is like the mercurial pursuit, like willingness to burn it down to satiate my desire. So there's this, we don't have anyone with zone 1 sexual. yet.
Damn. Okay, that's what I was hoping
Right.
to find. Because I imagine that would just.
Yeah,
God, that
that's
sounds like the
interesting.
worst.
Well, we had like
Zone 1
some
sexual dominant sounds awful.
we had like some examples of sexual blinds that we
Sorry.
used for the class who were zone 1. Like Heath Ledger, I
Right,
think
mhm.
might possibly be zone 1 in sexual. There's this artist called Earth Eater who we typed as social self-pres that we were convinced initially was a sexual type or had sexual in the stacking. We were really surprised that she didn't because her whole style is never the same, constantly transforming, and it just looks like she just feels like sexual blinds that are zone 1 and sexual feel like very possibly could have sexual in the stacking.
And then showing off her
That's
body
interesting.
constantly.
All like constant siren display. Like a lot of her songs have that sort of a siren sexual instinct kind of a style. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot is people's style of their instincts. And even if you have sexual in the stacking, or if you're sexual blind, like if you have like an opposite zone to what that instinct is trying to do. Like for example, me being my self-pres not having zone 3, which is fucking weird, like not having the fortifying, solidifying aspect of the self-pres. So that's been an interesting thing to observe.
Yeah. This is super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, when it was first rolling out, I was a little bit like, I don't know about this. Is this because we talked about it right at the top of the podcast episode? Is this going to be like that warm side, cold side, new
Right.
night side stuff? I'm like,
Subwing,
I don't.
yeah.
Are we becoming those people? But it really does have a lot of juice.
Yeah, it was really unexpected. We did the initial class not expecting anything to happen, but it just sort of snowballed. And usually, I mean, ideas are one thing, but it's if you can't see it in people, then what's the fucking point? But we were like, oh, wow, we're seeing this immediately.
This is what people are actually doing in each of the instincts. I mean, it's like, it's like really rubber meets the road kind of stuff in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
It also opens up some doors, at least for me, just thinking about working with the instincts. Like, okay, working with the blind spot, not even necessarily a blind spot, like, oh shit, like there's a specific thing that I need to do with my self-pres. Like I'm like even thinking about, oh, this would be cool to do with self-pres. Oh, you're doing that thing again. You're not doing zone 3. And like, oh, I really need to put concerted effort into building foundations for myself because just seeing like how you're pushing away from certain zones. That's been kind of a big thing for me.
Because one of the things that, again, this is really new to me, but one of the things that I've been having in the back of my head is seeing if there's like a match between like I have those instinctual needs, which are like what the instinct is trying to regulate. Like why, or what is it? It's a motivation to regulate something. And if there's like a correlation between the zones and the needs in some fashion or something.
That's interesting because I was wondering about the approaches. I was wondering if there was an overlap between the approaches and the instincts. Because I'm thinking already like, John's like instinctual approaches with the stems. Because there's like 3 approaches for each instinct. And maybe if it overlaps, it could say like, what's the approach you're doing the least of?
Yeah.
That's interesting too, because the approaches are the way we instinctually approach specific instinctual resources to regulate those instinctual needs. And so, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is it opens up some possibilities to get more specific about how to work with your own instincts or your relationship to those instincts. Yeah, just answers a lot of questions for me that I've been wondering about. And even just like the variations between people that have the same exact stacking. Like what's going on there? Like why is this person so chaotic or this person more conservative and they're the same exact type? So this has been it's been a really interesting thing that unexpectedly came out.
Cool. It's been fun to see the kind of blind spots also, like the 3 blind and each stacking has this kind of light display butterfly, look at me how cute I am kind of thing. Then the 2 blind has that quasi social blind thing where it can feel like almost claustrophobic and too saturated and really niche and maybe a little suffocated.
Reptilian.
Yeah. And then what's that last one? Oh,
One.
yeah. Well, one last would be just like something really solid and secure and
That's right.
just really kind of unmovable.
That's right.
So
Resilient.
cool beans.
Oh. All right, one question about 3-2 sexual.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, even like, you know, so I get the 3-2 is like the most common part of the, like sexual, but a lot of people who maybe are 3-2 don't even seem like they're into sex.
Right.
So
I mean, if I think that this is where it falls in the actual stacking is part of it too.
okay,
You know, like
Oh.
I think people's sex, like what I was saying, like I'm 3-2 sexual, but I'm sexual blind. And so there's a way that wasn't coming on for me until my sexual kind of turned on in general. So I think that's going to be a lot of it for most people in the sense that you guys all have different social stackings, but you know, social came on for you guys at different points as well.
because I think a lot of people don't actually like intercourse.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They don't like just the like penis and vagina, like that encounter. Even if, you know, even if they're like sexual blind or whatever, like that's the thing I enjoy, you know, and it's like
Right,
it's very
absolutely.
there. And so it's like and so like people
You've never heard that before.
I have this suspicion that people will like to hook up and get validated and stuff like this, but like the actual animal part of it is something that gets uncomfortable or it's not the real deal. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, no, there's something there. Even the whole, you know, where do we put the whole sort of asexual, you know, like I'm not interested in fucking thing.
right.
I suppose what 3-2 is describing is, okay, stability in attraction. And does that have anything to do with...
Could it also be John's 1-3 self-pres also? He's like very sexual about self-presy things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
you could say that.
Like that combo of things.
Yeah, actually, you know, because it can't just be one thing, right? Like if John was also 3-2 in self-pres, then maybe it'd be different.
Yeah, so that's getting to something. Well, I don't know. It's not a bullseye as usual, but there I can tell when people that are sexual blind have zone 1 just somewhere in these stems. I mean, I'm saying it as if my psychic ability is perfect or something, but I'm starting to see when that is the case, and I think that thing you're describing, possibly, John, of having the sense that people don't like sex itself, is often when somebody has no zone 1 at all, because it's like you're just not feeling any of that electricity thing.
Anywhere. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. But let me ask you, John, when you say that, are you saying that from knowing that people actually physically don't like sex, or that's a sense that you get that feeling?
People say that.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
People say that, yeah.
People say that.
Like,
Who
even,
are these people?
Well, I mean, in general, like people don't fuck as much as you might think. That's one thing that's been shocking to like.
I mean, it's been shocking to learn, like through coaching, for example, and getting into people's sexual stuff. Like, people will enjoy sex from the point of view of connection or feeling validated, or it means that my partner likes me still, but not like love to fuck. You know, it's like it's like the animal encounter part is like gross or uncomfortable or something like that. Well, and it's like how they can fuck people that they're not even that attracted to.
But then they're wanting to fuck if they're fucking people they're not attracted to.
You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, I'm in the like, I'm not just fucking for the like physical part. Totally. It's like the.
What maybe David's getting at is that maybe this is bleeding over into the self-pres zone 1 thing of I need to the experience of sexuality, the experience of sex, which you could be like a self-presy thing, needs to be. It feels like this is a transformative thing that can happen between us, and it's not just us exchanging orgasms. Like each time this happens, like there's it could be like a portal's opening or a shamanic thing that we're getting to do with our bodies. Like sex isn't, you know, and so maybe what he's getting at there is that yeah, like if someone doesn't have any zone 1, like if they're 3-2 across the board, then there's no that heat seeking, ravenous kind of transformative thing for happening.
Yeah, I still think a lot of it is partially because like he's sexual blind. I think a lot of it is just going to be it's just down there. Whereas John, yeah, it's 3-2, but it's first, and so there still is a priority around like finding the thing you are attracted to and then securing it and making sure that you can maintain it forever.
Yeah. So it doesn't, I guess the zones don't it doesn't cancel out the position of your instincts. It's just showing what you're going to emphasize, what part of the cycle you're going to emphasize.
Yeah, that's kind of how I think. It seems just like a blind spot activation starts to like turn it on, starts to like bring it into conscious awareness like anything else. And then you just have a specific, relationship to that.
Yeah, I suppose with my social 3-2, I just had to, find the right group of people and all of a sudden,
then you could be, steady for them. Yeah.
Nice. Pop
right. Yeah. So, no, that's interesting.
Yeah. More to explore.
Yeah, that's my thought around it.
Yeah,
so
no,
far.
it's gonna. We keep
it
finding
seems like it's
new
like,
pieces. As
yeah,
we
like
go.
it seems like there's like an integration, like a blind spot integration with each stacking now, and then there's like the big stacking still that is like the most important.
Right. Yeah, the more we look at it, the easier it is to spot people's zones now that we've gotten deep into all of them. But
yeah,
the next step is if we can do this with someone that we don't know at all, like complete strangers, like what list of questions or what kind of things we can look at. That would be the next frontier.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Good work, fellas.
Thanks.
Yeah, so cool.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, well, my social battery is low, but I'm glad we're doing episodes again.
Let's get back on the horse. Just
at a summer break.
I needed a break.
Yeah.
But
And
I'm good.
Break's over.
I need to stir up some more drama on the podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on all the tea.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Alrighty.
All right, see y'all
Okay.
later.
See you. All right.
Yay.
All right.
See you guys.
All right, good night.
All right, bye.